We never really know how one of our episodes is going to turn out. There's never a script or a set list of questions, and the people that show up are chosen randomly. And every so often, we're surprised by a conversation that doesn't go anything like we'd expect. This is one of those episodes. We asked our guests, how did you know you needed to stop drinking? And how do you deal with the idea of staying quit forever? The conversation that ensued was a beautiful example of common humanity, humility, wisdom, and meaningful connection. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and that recovery isn't just rewarding, but it's also a lot of fun. We're your hosts, Julie and Steve. Listen as we get together with friends to shed light on the hard things, talk about the other side of addiction, and how we create a life so full there's no space left for alcohol.
Make sure you keep up with us this summer by following us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, and we also have a group where we love chatting with our listeners. Check us out, facebook.com/ttg.recovery.
All right, welcome you guys. It's so nice to see you and so happy to have you here. This is episode 94, and this is also the last episode of season 2. So you guys are joining us this will be right before we take our summer break. This is going to come out, and yeah, it's really nice to have you guys. We're going to do our introductions. I'm going to let Martin start because Martin's been here before. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Martin. I'm the old guy here. I have been sober now for 20 years and a little over 5 months. I am a substance abuse counselor. I am also now most recently a recovery coach. I have published a couple books, and I am a DUI, DWI prevention advocate.
Really cool. Yeah, we've enjoyed watching your journey so much. Martin's been on the podcast off and on for like the last year and a half. So you've just accomplished so much in that time. It's been really neat to see your journey. You said you're the old guy. So I'm going to ask you, how old are you, Martin?
I just turned 45 last month, but I say old guy. I say old guy in the context of being on the show, like, numerous times.
All right. I see what you're saying. He's still older than me, so technically he's the old guy.
So there you go. I'm the old guy.
Yeah.
He's just a regular. No, it's really nice to have you back. It's really good to see you again, Martin.
Thank you.
And then we also have Melissa joining us. Do you want to tell us about yourself, Melissa?
I sure would. My name's Melissa. I am originally from Wisconsin, but I've been a New Yorker for almost 30 years, right in the city, right in Manhattan. And I'm a mom to a high schooler and a college-age student. I've done various things throughout my life, most recent being an aide for the elderly. But now I'm pivoting and going into coaching, alcohol-free coaching, since I removed alcohol from my life on August 14th of 2023.
Awesome. So cool. I love that. Yeah, I have kids probably similar in age to yours, so we're going to have to chat outside of this and just support each other through the teenage, college age, young adult stuff, because boy, that's an adventure. we can connect on that, I'm sure, for a while. But anyway, yeah, well, it's really nice to have you here. So for our topic today, how did you know you really needed to quit drinking? It's so easy for that voice to tell us it's really not that bad. So what did that look like for you? What was the final straw? And for a lot of our listeners, they really have to grapple with the idea of forever. So where do you stand on that? You knew you had to quit drinking, but then how do you deal with the idea of forever? So this is maybe a bit of a twofer, but I think these topics tie in together really well. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this.
Well, I can jump in if that's okay. Ladies first.
Throw it down.
Absolutely.
Throw it down. Let's go.
So I think for the past, first of all, I feel in my life for probably the past 20 years, So as long as you've been sober, Martin, in my head, I knew that at some point I was probably going to stop drinking. Whether I was going to be forced to do that or whether it would come onto me willingly was up in the air. For the past 5 or 6 years, I was very sober curious. I was hearing podcasts talking about the sober curious movement and reading books, and this little voice was building up in my head. Right before the pandemic, I took 4 months. I woke up one day. I was actually here. I'm upstate New York right now. And I woke up after a football game that I stayed up to watch. I'm a Wisconsinite, so these things happen. And I felt like absolute garbage. And I looked like garbage. And I took a selfie and I said, that's it. That is it. And I had, kind of white knuckled it. I was following some Facebook communities, but I wasn't going to any meetings or knowing other people. So for 4 months, I felt amazing. And that led up to March 12th, 2020, where in New York City was kind of the epicenter for the pandemic. And that little voice in my head said, oh, God, wouldn't it be nice just to have a beer? Let's go out to dinner. Let's have a beer. I said that to my husband. He said, okay, have a beer. And the next sentence he said, do you think it's something you can control? And I said, yeah, sure. And that night I had 1 beer. And then things start ramping up. The pandemic became full swing. I actually got very productive in the pandemic. I did some sewing. I made custom cloth face masks and I started selling them. And I was like moving and grooving because I had lost my job. The elderly woman that I was working with got, taken away upstate with her family. So I was hustling and I felt good. And then it's 5 o'clock. I've sat at my sewing machine for 8 hours. Surely I deserve to open up some wine. Things carried on through those years, and fast forward to 2021, my mother-in-law got cancer. She woke up one day, there was a tumor wrapped around her spine, and 10 days later, she was gone. It was very hard on my husband and I, and the whole family in general. Around that same time, I learned that my best friend, who I moved to New York with, who I did theater with years ago, he was the man of honor in my wedding. He saw both of my children come into the world. He was in a slow decline because of his alcohol use disorder. And I didn't know, when something like that, he didn't live in New York, he moved to Ohio. When something like that happens, you don't know how much longer someone has. And in your head, it's always, okay, I know he's not going to live a long life, but surely he's going to be around for a little longer. And in April of 2022, he went into the hospital for a routine procedure of being drained, basically, if you're familiar with how awful this disease is. Your body retains the ammonia and the fluid, and you have to regularly have it drained. And he went in and he had sepsis and pneumonia, and he never came out. And it gutted me to the point where I thought, is this what does it for me? Is this what I need? I even thought about flying to Ohio to see him dying in a hospital bed. For my own selfish reasons. I didn't, because he was so fucking vain that I know he would have hated for me to see him that way. So I didn't. After he passed, in my head, I was still like, this should be the thing. This should be the thing that kicks you in the butt and gets you going. And you know what? It wasn't. It wasn't, not yet. Instead, it was the thing that made me drink more.
Lit it on fire.
Light it on fire. It made me, I stood in my kitchen one night about a week after he passed, and I made dinner. And I can't even remember what it was. It was so terrible. It was awful. I hated it. I spit it out. I said to my husband, can we just order a pizza? And he said, yeah, let's just order a pizza. And you know what? For the next 16 months, that's what I did. I ordered a pizza. I ordered Chinese food. I ordered tacos, and I washed it down with tons of wine. I ordered wine. In New York City, there's this app called Drizzly. You can pick from liquor stores within a 10-block radius that will show up to your door with a case of wine. And I used to be mad that, if I put in the notes, please have some chilled. And it would come that chilled and really piss me off. So these things started ramping up. And I in my head, I was like, he didn't get to have this life. I'm going to live it up. Why not? So I went to see my doctor in August of 2023 because I needed a prescription filled. And I couldn't do that over a Zoom visit. She wanted to see me. And I knew subconsciously, I think, going in that it was not going to be a good visit. Even though I had booked it like 3 months out, telling myself, get your act together, There's some...
I've done that.
Right.
I've done that.
Right?
I know that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got time.
Yep.
I can stop drinking at least a few weeks before, because in the past she has I've been very transparent with her about my liver enzymes would come back high-ish, and she'd say, go stop drinking for a few weeks, come back, we'll retest your blood. And it would work, and I'd feel great. So it wasn't something new to her. I went in, and something in me felt like I could be very open and honest and vulnerable, where I couldn't with other people in my life, because the month or so leading up to that doctor's appointment, I was feeling things that I have never felt before, like those feelings of, what if I didn't get out of bed today? What if I just stayed in bed all day? Would anyone care? I could say I was, I was suffering. And I couldn't tell anyone. So I told my doctor. And she remembered, in the past that I've gone through certain programs, and she listened to me and she offered advice. She didn't judge me. I changed that box on the form that says, how much do you drink? 5 to 7 drinks. Are you kidding me? That was a Tuesday.
Right.
Right. I put 20 to 25, maybe it was even a little more than that, but I opened up to her. I was honest. We did the blood work, got the results the next day, and it was awful. It was exactly
the way you felt.
It was exactly
the way you felt.
It was.
Was that enough? Was that what actually finally got you to the point of, okay, I really have to do this?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It was high cholesterol, high blood pressure. My liver enzymes were through the roof, the highest they've ever been. My weight was the highest it's ever been. Everything. And she wrote in an email, because I think it surprised her. I really do. She wrote in an email that medication was next. A statin for your cholesterol, a semaglutide, for your, I was almost diabetic. My A1C was up to 6.7. 7.0 is diabetic. She said, I want to see you no less than 3 months again. Please try to make drastic behavioral changes. And this is a phrase that I come back to. when we play the tape forward, when we think about, this was my life. I was 51 years old at the time. What was I doing? I looked at myself in the mirror and I grabbed my fat belly and I thought, what the fuck are you doing with your life? I saw my best friend die. So I started to make those changes. And it's kind of what I refer to now, looking back almost 10 months later, as my epic comeback.
Right.
Because it was.
Absolutely.
If you follow football, I compare it to Super
Down
Bowl.
48-0 in the fourth quarter, and you're coming
Well,
back there, Sally.
Even better than that, 28-3. Atlanta over the Patriots. Super Bowl 51. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
31 points, 31 unanswered points in overtime to win the Super Bowl. I mean, these funny things.
No, it's
in my head.
for real though.
It's the
That is absolutely an epic comeback.
Yeah. Because I went back 3 months later. I said, okay, I'm not going to go back 6 weeks later. I'm going to do this. Right. And there were a lot of firsts. My birthday was in there and I was flying to see friends. And usually there's a lot of wine and drinking. And I was moving my kid back to college. And there's always frustrations with that. And I went back 3 months later, down 30 pounds.
Wow.
Damn.
My A1C dropped to a 5.5, not even pre-diabetic. Cholesterol 50 points down. Blood pressure normal, liver enzymes all within normal range.
Isn't it crazy what your body's able to do when we're stopped poisoning the damn thing?
Right.
Because for me, the liver enzymes were always a thing. The other stuff, I was like, cholesterol, like what?
Oh, it's like the chips, the house of cards starts to break down, right? Like you finally hit the tipping point where one thing can't, almost like the liver can't cope with the crap anymore. And then everything else starts to just snowball afterwards.
Yep.
Well, and what you were talking about there, so like, you lost your friend and you felt like that surely that would be the thing. That's what happened to me. I didn't lose a friend, but I wrecked my car. I totaled my car. That thing you think is never going to happen to you, right? And it does. And you become that person you thought you would never become. And I thought, surely this is going to be the thing that finally makes me quit. And it still wasn't. That still wasn't enough. It still took me 2 more months of effectively destroying family relationships and my own body and my own mental health and everything before it was like, I can't keep doing this. And thankfully it was only 2 months because I was in a terrible place. But, so many people reach that point where they have what should be their rock bottom moment and they miss it. And they keep going. They keep digging. And that was me. And it sounds like that was you. And then speaking of epic comebacks, Martin, I would love to hear your take on this.
Yep.
So I know Martin's background and Martin's story. And speaking of epic comebacks, I think you've got that for sure. But what are your thoughts on this, on how you knew it was really time? And then I know, I'm sure you've got your own twist. So let's hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, Melissa, thank you for sharing that, and congratulations on getting your life back in order and being in good health, and for being alcohol free. I mean, that's a monumental comeback. So for me, I wish that I had a really bad medical report that could have gotten me or would have gotten me sober. Unfortunately, that was not the trajectory of my life and recovery. There were warning signs prior to the catastrophic event that happened that eventually led to my sobriety, and that there were some physical signs, right? I mean, I've been drinking steadily, literally daily for 19 straight months leading into the eventual fatal car crash. But I remember, because I would like clockwork, I would drink 4 24-ounce cans of malt liquor when I would get off work every day around 4 o'clock, and I would drink those in the evening, and then I would finish off the evening with screwdrivers. On the weekends, however, I would start at about 7 a.m. So before I even had some cereal or a piece of toast, I was drinking gin and pineapple juice, right? And so I remember there were some moments where I would crack the beer and on the first one take a few swigs, and I would have this, and I could feel it coming on. I knew every time it was going to happen. It was just this immense pain in the side, and they say the liver is non-complaining, that you don't feel it when it when it starts to bother you, but something was complaining very loudly. It was just, and I would have to take a deep breath in, and I would let it pass, and it took maybe 5, 6, 7 seconds, and as soon as that would go, then I knew I was good to go. Right. And I would finish drinking. I wouldn't feel, but it was always on that first, few swigs. And I knew in my 24-year-old brain that this is not good. This is not healthy. But you always think at 21, 22, 23, that you still have time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have time. It's not going to be my life for the rest of my life. But like, I just need this now, right? I need this to feel better. I need this to be okay. And so that was one of the signs that I ignored. And then to top it off, because my reckless behavior didn't just stop at drinking and watching TV and eating potato chips and, having a good time, I took it to the streets. And so I would literally drink and drive every single day, again, for 19 straight months leading into the fatal car crash. But my girlfriend at the time, she had warned me numerous times, Martin, you cannot keep doing this. You're going to kill somebody. You're going to kill yourself. Like, this is not going to end well. And of course, at 24 years old, you think you're invincible, and well, it hasn't happened yet. So, it's probably not going to happen. I'm in control. I'm a better driver when I'm drunk. All of these delusional things we tell ourselves. And so this eventually culminated with a fatal car crash on New Year's Eve of 2003 after I was partying all night. I had gotten off work early that day and went straight to the liquor store. I spent my last $10 on a bottle of gin and drank that over the next 2 or 3 hours. Went back to the store, used my credit card for this, bought my 4 24-ounce cans of beer because that's what I do. Drank those, and then went to a party that night and drank more alcohol at the party. Ran through a red light at 1:03 a.m., crashed into a car, killed 2 people, severely injured a 3rd person. About 4 days later, I am in my cell, minding my own business. Someone slides the Oregonian newspaper underneath my door. Couldn't understand why. I didn't ask to see a paper, but I pick it up and I begin to thumb through it, and I see my picture. And so I'm reading through the article, and I'm reading about the lives of the victims, because at that point they were just faceless victims, right? I don't say that in a flippant way. I just didn't know. I didn't know anything about these people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading their stories. Come to find out, they were in long-term recovery at the time of this crash. One had 16 years clean, the other had 17 years. They had devoted their lives to help other people get clean and sober. They would watch women's kids so that ladies could attend AA and NA meetings. They were en route that night, New Year's Eve of 2003. They were en route from a clean and sober New Year's Eve party when they were struck and killed by a drunk driver. And so the columnist, he was highlighting what he called a palpable irony, that these people who had given their lives to help people get clean and sober would have their lives cut short by a drunk driver. And he concluded the article with a statement that changed everything for me going forward. He said, perhaps the person they will have ended up helping the most is the man who's charged with killing them. Oof. And like, I'm 24 years old. I'm in a jail cell. I know the laws in Oregon are very strict around DUI. Manslaughter is what it is. And it's a mandatory minimum 10 years, day for day, no matter what, for each person. And I've got 2 people, right, who are dead because of my actions. And another guy with injuries that will disable him for the rest of his life. So I know I'm going to prison for about 20 years on a plea bargain, right? I know that. And this guy is telling me that, or saying rather, that perhaps the person they would have ended up helping the most is this guy, is me. And I'm thinking, how is this situation going to help me? Like, my life is done. Like, it is over for me. And so, but it was also a phrase I could not ignore. So I sat with that phrase. I meditated on it. I prayed about it. I needed to understand how I was going to apply those words to my life. And so, long story short, it eventually came to me that the only way this tragedy will not be in vain is if I carry on these people's legacies and I devote every ounce of my being into this cause of helping people get clean and sober, maintain sobriety. But I first had to start with myself, right? I had to peel back the layers of my own addiction and understand how it started, why it started. Nobody in my family was an alcohol. My parents drank like, a half of a glass of wine around Christmas time every year, right? Like, that was the extent of it. And so I needed to do a lot of soul searching and getting formally educated. And so I poured all my energy into that. And so that was obviously the final straw, if you will. But, it was also a decision because you can drink in prison, right? Guys make prono right and left, right? They celebrate the holidays the way people do out here. They make, jailhouse wine and pass it around, and guys get drunk and stupid, and like, it happens, right? There would have been no other way to dishonor my victims more had I gone that route, right? I mean, had I not put everything I could into this cause and this mission that they so believed in and dedicated their lives to. So that was really the defining factor as to how I was going to spend that 17 and a half years, which is what I ended up spending in prison. And it very much defines my life today. And so to answer the second part of the question, not to get too long-winded, but as far as considering forever, I'll be honest with you, about 6 months before I got out, a part of me worried about being sober in the real world, right? It's one thing to be sober in prison. I get it, there's opportunities, but it's not like it is out here, right? Not even close.
Right.
And so, and I hadn't been sober out here in the real world for decades, right? So like, would I be able to have fun out here? Because everything, if we're going to go shoot pool, we're going to get drunk. If we're going to go fishing, we're going to be drinking. If we're going to go bowling, so like, everything involved drinking. And I didn't know how that was going to play out in my life. And so, but when I got out, right, I'm just so enamored with just freedom, right? And so that was stimulating in and of itself. But the more I start, and then I had this thing that because I had been tucked away for 17 and a half years, not able to do anything that I really wanted to do, I said, I'm going to do everything that I want to do, and even things that I hadn't thought about doing. Like, I'm definitely afraid of heights. But I was like, you know what? I'm going skydiving because I couldn't for 17 and a half years. So I'm going to go skydiving. And I did it. And it was the most exhilarating thing ever. And like, it was so much fun. And I actually remembered it the next day, which I couldn't say many times when I was in my addiction. Right. And I'm going rock climbing, and I'm going, on boats and hiking and all these things that were just naturally stimulating. And so once I kind of, recreated this life that was totally opposite from what it was before in my addiction, and I was stimulated by that, right? And even just like, I go for walks like 3 or 4 times a week nearby in this beautiful park, and sometimes I'll listen to music, but sometimes I'll just listen to the birds, or I'll watch the squirrels, or I'll just hear the wind rustling through the trees, and like, that is so relaxing and just calming and even rejuvenating. And so like, I've just found new ways to be at peace and to be stimulated and to be happy and to be content. And so once I gave it time, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be good. Like this is not just like, oh, I have to settle for this life without drinking. Like, this is gonna be great. And it's been great.
Wait, what? This is better than it was before.
My God, you have no idea. So I'm coming up on 3 years next month, and I've traveled the country. I've even been out of the country. I've been on cruises. Roller coasters. On top of hotels in Vegas. Like, just living it up. And like, I would not trade it for my best day in my addiction. Right. There's just no comparison. To be present. I'll finish with this, as far, thinking about the future. I remember there was I was a big worrier, right? I worried about everything. And come to find out, it's 90 to 95% of the things that I worried about never came to pass. They never came to pass, right? You cannot live in the future. And my clinical director told me, he said, if I got one foot in the present and I got one foot in the past, then I'm kind of pissing all over today.
Pissing all over today.
Like you have to be present. You have to be present.
Yes.
As much as I was present in my addiction, if you will, as far as like just drinking for today, right? I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not thinking about next week. I'm just trying to, drink right now. So I was present in that sense. So if I could do
borrowing tomorrow for the moment, right?
Exactly. So I show up today and I'm present, and it's a beautiful thing, and life is awesome. And I would definitely say for the newcomer or somebody who's thinking about getting sober, like if you're thinking about there's no way you can do this for 6 months or a year or 5 years, then you're right. You're gonna overwhelm yourself and you're gonna quit before you even start. But if you literally just be present for the day and allow yourself to kind of bask in the joys of nature, or hobbies, or people and good people in your life, like I'm telling you, there is stimulation in that, but you have to give yourself a chance to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying, my catchphrase, and it has been since like the very beginning of recovery, is create a life so full there's no space left for alcohol.
Yes.
And that has been the words that I've lived by every single day since I stopped drinking. And that's what makes forever feel like something I can do. And you're right, it's about the present, because it's not about what am I going to do in 10 years? What is that going to look like? It's about what do I need to do today so that my life feels full and like it's not lacking anything. Like my needs are being met and like my soul is full. And that every single day turns into a life where alcohol just doesn't even have a place anymore. It's not something I think about. It's not something I wish for. It's not something I want to be a part of my life. And for sure, there's those moments where like the fleeting moments that where you have the thought, maybe like it would be so nice to drink today or whatever, but they go away so fast because I know how full my life is now. And there's no way I would trade this life, even with all of its pain. And God knows there's a lot of pain. It's not like my life is perfect.
That's it right there, though, the trade, right?
Yeah, I would never trade the way my life is and how full my life feels with people and with experiences and with like the love that I have for myself, all of that. I would never trade that to go back the way that it was, to be numb all the time. Not in a million years would I trade that.
I can't.
I love this so much. Sorry, Steve.
It's all good. It's all good.
Oh, so let me be totally transparent. You guys will get a kick out of this. I responded to the email. Yeah, we're all set. So about 20 minutes before we got on this call, I Googled Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, shit. Like, this guy, holy shit. Right? And I'm going to be on this podcast with him. There was like this self-doubt creeped in to me and my story, which, I know my story is relevant. And when but in recovery, in alcohol-free living, especially maybe because I'm early on, you find yourself comparing your story, right? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. It's not what makes us different, because there's a lot of difference, right? Gray area drinker, I don't drive, live in New York, it's not the difference, it's the similarity.
Yeah, there's a ton of them.
And hearing him say and I didn't know, oh my God, the fact that those people were in recovery, I was here weeping, literally. The fact that you have that chance to do that in their memory, the fact that I have a chance to do this in my friend's memory, that we have a chance to have a better life, is the similarity that binds us together. And it's so powerful.
I don't even need to end this. You just did. Like, literally, Melissa, you nailed this so much. And you summed it up so beautifully. And I think I'm just going to end it right here because I think you've said everything that needs to be said. I don't need to say anything more. I wasn't sure how this episode was going to turn out, and it turned out it got me emotional listening to both of you guys say everything that you needed to say. So really, I want to say thank you for showing up on this last episode of season 2. Both of you for being super vulnerable and sharing just the little bits of your story that were so meaningful in what you turned around. I want to thank you guys sincerely from the bottom of my heart, and all of you listeners for being a part of this podcast and for hanging around with us for as long as you have, or if you're new, thank you. I feel grateful for every one of you, for all of the people that have been a part of this show and this journey. I want to thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Martin, for your time and your thoughts and your experiences. And we will see everyone again at the beginning of September with brand new episodes. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. To our listeners, thanks so much for hanging out with us today and for sticking with us through season 2. We continue to learn and grow, and we hope you do also. We'll re-release our favorite episodes throughout the summer, and we'll be back in September with new episodes and new guests that we can't wait to share with you.